The Rothschild tax. It's the Rothschild tax. I'll tell you what, that's what's making all this stuff possible, guys. Good morning, everybody. Very nice to see you. You're watching on your TVs on Texas and Louisiana. We are soon to add, from what I understand, Tampa or Tallahassee, I forget, and Miami. So that'll be pretty nice. We'll be on your TVs in Miami as well as other parts of Florida. Looking forward to that. Big day in the news today. Of course, we are rounding off our Friday, another week here under the in this place we call Earth, right? A lot going on. Of course, I tell you what, what's going on here in the zone, in the hurricane zone, is really unbelievable. Maui was very far away. I don't know if you've been to Hawaii or not, but Hawaii's far. Okay, Maui is very far, so it was kind of understandable that stuff was able to kind of happen there. But, right here under our nose on the East Coast, we have this going on, and people appear to be powerless. Another reason why I am very concerned about getting a real result, or a result that we're all comfortable with on the election, to be completely frank. I've said that a number of times, but people just, I guess they don't know how to react. But now drones are banned from, drones are now illegal to go over and video what's going on. There's like 215 people confirmed dead in this storm. Unbelievable numbers, guys. I mean, I've been around a long time. I've never heard anything like this before. And it's just being really whitewashed under. Now we have another storm coming. Kirk, I think is his name. Kirk is coming. And they're saying this is going to be another bad one. And I bring it up for a number of reasons. Number one, I think that, there's a lot of people doing a lot more in-depth videos than I am about it. But the government has been in control of the weather, been using the weather for certain types of things for a long time. I've said it a number of times. My father was in the Vietnam War, and we would go through and do whatever it was that we did in order, and it was understood. We were going to, before we went in there to shoot up the bad guys, we would make it rain and rain and rain for a week, get them all muddy and, get them all their morale down and everything else. And then we would go in and do it. So we've been controlling the weather for a long time. So when I see stuff like that, and 215 people dead already, I think there's like 1,000 people missing. Unbelievable. And I don't watch the news, so I don't know that if it's being talked about so much or not, to be honest. But this is like a storm that I've never seen before in my life. Okay, in the history of my life in the U.S. And it just seems like everybody's kind of ho-hum about it. And since we know that we have been controlling the weather for a long time, I don't think we should be ho-hum about that at all. I don't know what the answer is, but you remember, if they're able to get away with it, then of course they'll continue to do it. And we saw that in Maui, if that's indeed what happened in Maui. Who knows? Chasing Titles, Election Strategy and the Business of Winning in 2024 on the Impact Money Show is the title of the show. Elon joins Trump rally in Butler, Pennsylvania today. Is Hurricane Helene a Maui repeat? Question mark. Middle East wars intensifies, driving up oil prices, and Fed eyes another rate cut. As well, we have the Asian markets have been going absolutely nuts. Like, we're talking like, 10-point moves, 10% moves, like major moves, daily moves in the Asian stock markets. It's really just amazing to watch. That, I think, is an indication of the dollar sliding so much. They could as well be printing a lot of money that we're not so so in tune with. Shanghai Stock Exchange is up another 8% today. This was up 10% 2 days ago when I looked at it. Hong Kong Stock Exchange up almost another 3%. This was up like 8%. I mean, these are huge numbers here. Hong Kong Stock Exchange is big. Shenzhen up over 10% today. I mean, these are just huge numbers. Oil is up about $1 on the daily. That's going to continue to move up. Of course, you have, I would say, saber rattling. It's a bit more than saber rattling over there in the Middle East. Unfortunately, you have the war is intensifying. You have everybody's like, oh, don't worry, the U.S. will not be involved, and this and that and the other. You have like Israel with like 5 million people, and then you have Iran with 90 million people. Don't worry though, guys. The U.S. will not have to be involved. It's just crazy to me. So that's going to continue. That will continue to intensify. That is putting jitters across the markets. You can see Bitcoin. Of course, everything is so high as well. The U.S. stock exchange very high. It keeps going all-time highs. So, when you're at all-time highs, and like, as Matt says, and everybody's long, there's only one way to go. Or if everybody's short, then, well, there's kind of only one way to go, right? So, doesn't mean that it's going to do it right now. But if you started buying gold when we started talking about it a year ago on the show, we started the show about a year ago, a little less than a year ago. But if you've been buying gold and silver, you're really happy right now, up 50%. At costmetals.club. That'll forward you to at costmetals.com. Use the referral club code clubs, or you can just go to at costmetals.club and it'll forward you there. At costmetals.com. Referral link clubs. Get gold, silver, palladium, platinum at cost. Dollar cost average your way in, not financial advice and all that good jazz. Both gold and silver are up 50% or more since we started talking about it. Bitcoin's up over 100%. So, take your pick. A bit more volatile both ways. Bitcoin. I do expect Bitcoin as well. If we have a global fallout here, everything goes, when it goes down, everything goes down. It's not like, if we have a complete collapse of the system, that Bitcoin is just going to go up by itself. No, everything goes down. Then things bounce back higher than others. As well, there is more and more banter that the Federal Reserve is bankrupt. You have Elon Musk now coming out saying that the U.S. is bankrupt. He's very careful, really, not to, I think, finger the Federal Reserve. My man's got a lot of U.S. dollars, and he's doing a lot of business with the government. And I guess that's probably why he says he kind of stays away from the cartel, but he has brought it up a number of times as well. I sent a video over to our friend Matt, who I'll bring on in a minute, about how we were the Federal Reserve basically, whenever they're doing this quantitative, this printing of money, they print it up so that basically every dollar that they print two of them. They print one, and it's like on their little system, in their little bank system, and then they have one that gets distributed out. And that little bank system note there that stays in the system, the Federal Reserve has basically talked the banks into the partner banks into holding those. They used to always send them back because they're like, hey, look, we'll pay you. This was Bernanke back in the day, I guess, 20, 30 years ago, 20-ish years ago, I guess. And he says, we'll pay you interest on that, so just hold those. And so at this point now, with everything compounding and everything else, the Federal Reserve is completely upside down, even on their paper stuff. So it remains to be seen how that all falls out. I don't think it goes anywhere good. That's that much is clear. And that's how, of course, all the wars and everything get funded. I mean, when you have a country with 5 billion people taking on a country of 90 million people, they should probably, I know it's rough, but they should probably talk. Okay, they should probably get to the bargaining table, because that's going to be pretty bad one way or the other. The only way they're able to fund all these wars is because of the Federal Reserve, because of this banking cartel that we have. We have no real control. We have no control over. Actually, they have total control of the monetary policy, and we have no control over how much they mint for stuff like that, because they can tax us however much they want, and it's like sneaky. People don't understand. Even though I come on TV and I talk about it all the time, people don't understand. Inflation is a tax. All that inflation that you see, that's a tax. So, yeah, I mean, if the Federal Reserve wasn't there, we would not have so many wars, because they couldn't just mint up 8 billion for Ukraine and 8 billion for Israel and just send it over there and then tax us on the back end. So it's an interesting system that we have. I've been saying it's going to crash though for a long time, and it hasn't yet. So I always like to qualify it like that. They have lots of tools in their shed in order to keep that afloat. Anyway, let's talk about the markets. We got the Market Watch section here with Mr. Matt Dixon. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Bruce. I'm good, thank you. Yeah, so Ben Bernanke was chairman. Thank you. Ben Bernanke was chairman of the board of governors during the great financial crisis. The great financial crisis that we're talking about is the 2008-2009 crisis. So if you remember helicopter money under Ben Bernanke, where basically they're just throwing money out to try to revive the economy, that was all under him. So
yeah, it was funny. I must have been, I guess I think I was running around Europe in those years, because then Obama was elected, I think, right around that time as well, I think, right? And so I was like, I didn't vote in that election because I was in Europe. And so I wasn't really keyed into that whole Bernanke thing. And then that was an interesting video though, huh?
Yeah. I mean, he's known for his helicopter money thing. But it's interesting. That's actually what's driving up the Chinese stock markets at the moment. They're basically reduced interest rates, massive stimulus to try to get that bailout property sector out, because, as you know, they're really underwater. And so that's what they've done. They just lowered interest rates. They're really stimulating the economy, throwing money at the problem, exactly what Ben Bernanke did back then. And as you know, the money's got to go somewhere, and it's gone into risk assets. That's what's pumped up these stock markets to crazy levels, as you say.
And it's like crazy. It's like day after day, it's like 10%. I'm like watching. It's like, what is going on over there? And that is obviously, it's the only way you pump up a market like that.
Yeah. And it's quite interesting, though. You talked about stock markets all-time highs, which they are. Gold all-time high. They're there or thereabouts, within touching distance of all-time high. But look at Bitcoin. It's 20% off its all-time high. Ethereum, 50% off its all-time high. So crypto is actually way lagging at the moment. If the stock markets do take a turn for the worse, then I believe that the crypto will take an even harder hit for the time being.
That's what I'm saying just a couple of minutes ago as well. If it goes down, it's all going to go down.
Yeah. And my thesis is that maybe if the things really crash really badly, I believe that Bitcoin may rise out of the ashes, but it will be out of the ashes. Everything will crash seriously hard, but Bitcoin will be that asset, as we've always said, that's got limited supply, and maybe will be seen as the real true digital gold. Even gold, by the way, crashed in 2008-9, and if we get a financial crash, you can't eat gold, so even gold will crash. It's a store of value, as Bitcoin will crash. Liquidity is drawn from the system. People have to sell everything to cover debts, to cover borrowings, all that kind of thing. So it will be quite serious. So probably I'll go into sharing my screen. Quite interesting to look at where we potentially are in the markets. Let's just see. So first of all, I hope you can see that to start with.
Yes, we have the, is that BTC?
It's Bitcoin. It's Bitcoin, yeah. This was a chart that I posted on X in 2022. I'm not sure whether it's the right one to start with, but we'll start with it anyway. Quite interesting because I showed that we were in a corrective mode on the way down. I labeled it WXYXZ. It may have actually been just a larger WX and then ABY down. It doesn't matter whether it's a double or triple zigzag, makes no difference. What I did say was that at this point, I posted this chart. You can see the line down there. When you have YX, you expect a final Z wave down in a triple zigzag. So you can see I expected the final wave down. That's precisely what we got. And that was actually the FTX low that we got around 15,500. That was the low that we saw. And that was predicted in advance using Elliott wave, using Fibonacci. And the reason I'm showing this is not to show off about how amazing this is, which it is amazing. It's actually to just compare this on the current situation with Bitcoin from the all-time high that we currently have. So this was the previous all-time high that we had around 68,000 or so at the time, and the big fall that we had down to the FTX low. Now, from the high that we had, the all-time high that we now have at 70-odd thousand, 73,008 or something, we've got a very, very similar chart pattern on a smaller fractal, and we'll look at that. But basically, it's calling potentially for another leg down before we potentially turn higher. So remember what happened after FTX? Everyone was thinking, oh, it's all done over, crypto will never recover, whatever. People were really in the doldrums back then, blood on the streets, as it were. And then the market recovered, and we got a new all-time high on Bitcoin. Now, we're in a similar situation on a smaller fractal right now from the all-time high of 74,000. Very, very similar chart pattern, just on a smaller time scale. And I think that we may have one more low to go, but I do then think that we'll push to new all-time highs, exactly as this market did at the time. So I thought that was interesting to look back at. Well, here's gold, by the way. I'm not particularly going to comment much on gold, apart from just to reinforce what you said. Yes, look at this amazing move higher that we had. Very powerful, impulsive move to the upside. No overlap. It is impulsive. It can continue. We've said this many times before. Looking at the various fractals, it's actually got scope to go much higher. Even if we get a pullback correction, pullbacks are probably opportunities to buy the dip. And as you can see here, we're virtually there or thereabouts at all-time highs for gold. I want to touch on oil, though, because that's the interesting one right now. Mm-hmm. All of the turmoil going on in the Middle East. So let me just shrink that chart to show you a couple of interesting things.
And oil has a long way. It could have a long way to go, too.
It could have a long way to go, potentially either way. This was the COVID crisis. And do you remember back then, oil actually hit negative. They're actually...
we couldn't get rid of it. I had guys calling me. They're like, I have a full tank of oil off the coast of wherever.
Yeah, they were basically paying you to take the oil because they had no storage available.
Yes.
So that was why we got negative oil. You can see here, it basically went negative on the futures. So oil cost nothing in the COVID times. And then we got the peak that happened. That was $130 from nothing to 130 in quite a short time. And that was the Russia-Ukraine war that caused that. So that's what I say caused inflation. Obviously, you got massive uptick in oil price. Oil price is one of the major expenses that we all have to deal with, whether it be business, transport, personal heating, petrol or gas, as you call it, whatever you want to call it. Basically, it's a big component of inflation. It drives prices higher. So even if you're excluding food and energy, as in core, it still has a massive effect on inflation because it affects the cost of transport, the cost of manufacturing, the cost of heating your home, etc. So the cost of goods, basically. So when you get spiking oil prices, it causes inflation. That's what caused inflation. The reason I'm harping on about this is I believe inflation was externally driven by this war in Ukraine, Russia-Ukraine. Externally driven, meaning it wasn't demand driven. And the reason you raise interest rates normally is to quash demand, to bring inflation down. But demand wasn't getting out of step. But to be fair, the financial system has been massively distorted by the money printing in 2008 and following COVID. All this money printing out of thin air has distorted, and it is just something, putting stick and plasters on the problems and creating problems for the future. So even what China are doing now, effectively just printing money, throwing money at the system to try to keep things afloat. This goes against academic theory. Schumpeter was a very famous economist talking about constructive destruction or something of the sort. Basically, you need to have destruction to get rid of the weaknesses in the economy. To rebuild the construction is what rebuilds and strengthens the economy. We've actually done away with that, and we're protecting weak business, whatever, by just printing money, and that money has gone into risk assets. So it's distorting distribution of wealth between the rich and the poor. It's just not, it's very, very short-sighted. For political reasons, they've just carried on printing money. And
I think that they're going to continue lowering rates, even if maybe they, who knows what, whether you want to say they should or shouldn't. I think they will continue, and it will be political.
Well, I did say, when they did 50 basis points, I couldn't believe it. I was shocked, and we were shocked, actually. We believed it should be 25 at the most. They did 50. Why did they do 50? He didn't give any good reason why they did 50, because you could say, okay, you did 50, you thought things are really bad, yet inflation's way above target, so you want to lower interest rates by a big amount, twice what was expected, whilst inflation's already way above target. Does that make any sense? It doesn't make any sense at all. Is the economy that bad that you want to lower rates by 0.5 percentage point? No, the economy is not that bad. We've got non-farm payrolls out. They're probably going to continue to be reasonably robust. We'll see. Maybe we get a little bit of a tick down. We'll see. That's going to inform the next rate decision. They cannot credibly, logically, on current data, they can't reduce rates again. They talked about reducing rates for the final 2 meetings of the year. I don't see how it's possible. And I went out on Twitter and said, I can't understand it, why they drop rates by so much when we've got inflation higher than expected. And you've gone on show after show talking about the cost of goods, the cost of eggs, the cost of all these things. Inflation is higher than they're reporting. Inflation is sky high.
A lot higher.
And they reduced interest rates by 0.5 percentage point. It does not make any sense at all. I don't understand.
Well, they're printing so much money. You know what I mean? So it's kind of they're freaking out. This is not the word I want, but that works.
I mean, after all this money printing, the money is flowed into risk assets. Thing is, now they want to maintain the levels of risk assets. So this is a third secret mandate. It's not an open mandate, but basically a secret mandate to maintain asset prices. I suppose for the good of the rich. And that's what they're doing. That's why they're continuing to ease monetary policy in the face of inflation. This will probably bring about stagflation, which is the worst of all worlds. And nobody hardly dares mention it. But if stagflation happens, we are in deep trouble. I won't use the word I want to use. We're in deep trouble.
That's good.
If you get stagflation, stagnant growth with inflation, then you don't have policy tools to deal with that. They dreamt up policy tools, QE and all this kind of QT, QE, all this stuff, dreaming up policy tools to deal with trying to grow the economy, trying to grow risk assets, etc. But when you've got stagflation, you cannot print money because it just makes the inflation worse, and you can't lower interest rates, to stimulate the economy. That makes inflation, you're just stuck. I don't think there's any policy action you can take. All you have to do is basically suffer stagnant growth and try to get inflation under control. That's what they will do. So we are headed for recession. We've said it many times in the past. We will be headed for recession, I believe. There are enough signs out there with money supply, with inversion of yield curve, etc. So recession is coming, I think. This is going to ultimately be bad for risk assets, bad for social mood. I mean, these are times when you get social unease.
Yep.
And we've already got that geopolitically. This Israel thing. Let's just jump over to. Sorry to say jump over. We're on oil at the moment.
It's like the perfect storm. I think the port workers have decided now to push the things till January, but we have a lot of things stacking up. Whatever way the U.S. election comes out, half of the country or so is going to be unhappy about it, and then you're going to have a recession, and then we're going to, you know what I mean? You're going to have tremendous unrest possibilities.
Yeah. And we've got Israel they are highly likely to retaliate. This is actually, they've got the upper hand right now, and this is their opportunity to basically do away or set back the Iranian nuclear program. That's what they want to do. And now they've weakened Hezbollah, they've weakened all the Iranian proxies roundabout. So now they have the excuse to attack the Iranian nuclear facilities. If that happens, no doubt there'll be a massive spike in oil price. We've already seen that. We've seen 15% spike or somewhere around that in the last few days. It just shows here. I'll go into a shorter time frame and open it out a little bit, just so we can see a little bit the rise. It doesn't look big on the long time frame, but when you open it out a little bit, you can see that oil is actually pretty strongly bullish.
Yeah.
Those candles are strongly bullish to the upside, and we even got a gap to the upside. Now, we may potentially get a short-term pullback, because very often when you get these gaps, they often fill before price then advances again. But we'll see. They don't have to fill. It's not an absolute rule, but usually gaps in prices fill. So we could get a pullback. And as you know, I was short the market. I actually closed my short positions on Friday, and I told people on X that I was closing my short positions, which did very nicely. So I expected the market to pull back. It did pull back. And then I closed my positions, and I again notified everybody on X in advance. And as we can see, I closed around 136 area on Solana. It's now 139.82. So prices have bounced back. I think it's probably still corrected, but all I'm saying is this oil price, there's potential for it to go much, much higher. We may get a short-term pullback, but if something goes on, something further with escalation with Israel and Iran, that could really massively spike prices. And that's going to boost inflation. And that means they will not be lowering rates. In fact, as you said, maybe the Fed will have to raise rates again. Now, that would really blow their credibility when they take a drastic action like a 0.5% interest rate cut, and then they have to reverse it because they made a mistake. Didn't read the signs properly.
Yeah, so I think that, I mean, we'll see. I would be just very surprised. I mean, it's a very political entity. I just think that they will continue to, as crazy as it may be, they're going to continue to lower interest rates.
I mean, it would be crazy. I just don't know how they could possibly stand up at a press conference and say, yes, we know inflation's actually rising. Things are getting out of control on inflation, so we decided to lower interest rates, which will make the situation worse. I don't see how that conversation goes. But anyway, we'll see. You never know with these guys. They can justify anything, I guess.
Yep.
We'll see. Yeah. Here's Bitcoin. Again, we got the expected pullback. I showed there's an ABC higher. I think the C wave went to 100%. Did it? Yeah, it did perfectly 100%. That was amazing. So then we expect there to be some pullback. That's precisely what's happened. I think there's going to be more pullback. If this is clearly an ABC higher, we could actually have a much deeper pullback. So right now, I'm out of the market. I actually closed my shorts on Friday. I did jump in very briefly to a long because I expected it to be a bounce back, which there has been, but I'm not prepared to hold positions right now because there's just too much uncertainty. Don't forget, we are probably more than 90% certain that Israel will retaliate over this Iran thing. So if that happens, it's surely going to create more turmoil. So it's surely foolishness to gamble on what Israel are going to do, how effective it will be, whether they just take the high road and say, okay, Iran didn't have any effect, we're not going to, who knows? So it's just a crazy time to gamble. So that's why I'm right out the market at the moment. I've,
we did get a question from the Stoic on Twitter. Has that ever happened before, where the Fed raises rates after cutting them?
Yeah, it has. Can't remember offhand when, but it has happened. Yeah, and we've had it in the UK as well. So it does. I mean, I'd have to Google it, to be honest, to have a quick look at when it was, but I'm pretty sure it has happened, and it just blows the credibility out of the water. Normally, it's associated with, I think. I mean, again, when I said how could they justify it, if there's some sort of crisis, like for example, a big spike in oil prices, that could potentially justify raising rates again, because that would drive inflation higher. And they'd say it's not our fault. It's geopolitical tensions have raised oil prices, so we have to react accordingly. And we always said we're data dependent. So that could justify, and there could be some reasonable logic behind potentially raising rates. Even as we watch, oil is just continuing to push higher. I mean, $75, over $75 now. And
remember, it is a long way to go. I mean, it was over $100 not long ago.
Yeah, $130 at the height of the Russia-Ukraine war. This could even potentially, that could pale into insignificance potentially if things were to really kick off in the Middle East. There's at the moment, these are relatively, it's not a major outright war at the moment, but there's potential for that. So that's a risk. So Bitcoin, as I say, I'm pretty much out of the market at the moment. I think that potentially we have lower to go. If things do drop lower, then I will reassess. But I always like to be, this word data dependent. It is actually important to be data dependent. You shouldn't take a decision and just be doggedly stick with that decision. You need to look at what's going on in the world. And if things change, only a fool doesn't change their mind. That would be like, yeah. So you do have to be adaptable with these things. So that was Bitcoin. Let's just have a quick look at Solana. Again, Solana, this chart was posted before the actual move higher. I'll just move that out of the way so you can see. We've got a nice little move higher from the A wave. This is where I closed my position, actually not that low, but somewhere around here I closed my positions. I did one long trade actually after that, and I closed that already because I don't know what's going to happen now. But you can see from the end of this move down, and just looking at it from the top there, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 waves down. So the reason I closed my position, 7 waves is actually a corrective count. So if it's corrective to the downside, that means potentially we're going to get some upside. So that's exactly why, just simple as that, that's why I closed my trade. We had a 7 wave count to the downside. We may well get another wave down, which would make it 9 waves, which would then turn it to impulsive. So that could easily happen, especially if Israel do something. So right now, there's so much uncertainty. I just don't think it's wise to be in the market at the moment. Dollar index has been on a bit of a tear at the moment, and there's a couple of alternatives here for dollar index. Now, when trouble happens, as we said before, money tends to flow out of risk assets into US Treasuries. US Treasuries are seen as the safe haven. They're seen as risk-free, effectively. And so when there's trouble, people pile their money into these treasuries, especially as interest rates are quite high. They can actually get a damn good return on their treasury investments right now. So why risk your money on Bitcoin, on SPX, on whatever, on Solana, when you can get a really good return, safe return with no risk to your capital, because you know it's guaranteed you'll get it back, assuming the Federal Reserve don't go bust. But it's actually seen internationally as a risk-free investment. But anyway, where is DXY going now? Well, there's a couple of possibilities. You might say this doesn't help, but it does help. Helps from a risk-reward perspective. So we've had from the high point, I just have to scroll out a little bit so you can see where I counted from. on dollar index there, we see it. So we had a wave 1 down, 2 up, 3 down, 4 up, and potentially 5 down to come. Or we could have completed the 3 here. This could be all 4 in red, and we could have completed an ending diagonal wave 5. That is a real possibility. They're both real possibilities. And the thing is, it gives two, and this is another reason why I'm out of the market right now. There's 2 quite diverse possibilities right now, and I like to invest when the possibilities, the different possibilities actually align with direction in the market. Right now, if this is wave 3 and this is wave 4, then we have much lower to go in dollar index, and that would be good for risk assets. So you buy Bitcoin in that case. But if basically this were wave 3 and that is wave 4, if this is wave 5 here, that was 4, that was 5, then this isn't wave 4 anymore, and we're starting an impulse to the upside. So that would mean the 5-wave move is complete here, instead of further on down here. So if it's already complete, we potentially just have much, much higher to go with dollar index, and so that would be negative Bitcoin. So I need to see what's going to happen with Israel, because it's really a toss of a coin right now which way it goes. And there are times like that, and that's why there are times when just stay out of the market. No point risking, no point gambling. Trading isn't about gambling, by the way. Trading is about assessing your risk and your reward, determining the potential downside, determining the potential upside, and basically placing a trade based on that. And if it goes wrong, you know exactly what you'll lose. If it goes right, you know what you win. Now, it's a gamble between winning and losing, but you put it in your favor. So a trader always puts things in his favor. So over the long term, so I just checked, for example, over the last month, I've done 20 trades now in the last month. 19 of them have been positive. 1 of them has been negative. That's purely because I put the risk reward in the right place. And when I did take a loss, it was a modest loss. In fact, my biggest loss was 9 times smaller than my biggest gain. So again, that's risk reward. It's risk reward in terms of the magnitude of your losses and your gains, but it's also risk reward in terms of the likelihood of it becoming a loss or a gain. And so that's, again, the kind of art of being a trader. It is a science. It's also, it probably is just a science, but it feels like it's an art sometimes.
I think it's both.
Anyway. Yeah. So again, it's a big mistake. Just again, hopefully we're just providing educational stuff here. It's a big mistake to get tied into. Some people are big Jasmy fans. Some people are big XRP fans. There's no point being a particular fan of something. Yes, you might like trading Jasmy or XRP, or I like trading Solana, for example, but you still need to understand that it can go up and it can go down. You need to look very, very unemotionally at what are the prospects for up and down. So I know people just, they get really upset if you say a particular asset might be going down in value, when they're big Jasmy fans, for example, or big whatever.
I wanted to ask you, I know we talked about it, on the show at least once before. There was a time during the month that a certain amount of XRP gets released, and they'll usually pump the market before that. What was that? Was it the first week of the month or something like that, or what was it? What was that schedule? Do you remember?
I'd have to check, to be honest. I can't remember, but it happens every single month, so it is priced in usually beforehand. The reason for the XRP fall off this time was actually SEC news came out. They basically filed a response to the. It wasn't a win for XRP, but basically they filed a response, and they're fighting that. So it's still up for grabs over XRP, and that's why XRP, one of the reasons it took a big hit, it may well have been exacerbated by the monthly release of XRP into the market. So, yeah, there's a number of reasons. I'll check on that because it is obviously an interesting point. And then Ethereum has been, really, I'm just looking, as we said, Bitcoin down 20%, but Ethereum is down 50%, isn't it, from its all-time high?
Yeah.
Despite us having the Ethereum ETF, which hasn't had a particularly good uptake.
And now they're allowing the guys to self-custody it. So does that mean that they're going to be able to get the staking rewards? Or is that no from the Ethereum Foundation?
I think it's a no in the ETF. I don't think it's possible to get the staking rewards within the ETF, as far as I'm aware.
Well, I just saw the news. I think it was this week. They said that, or over the last 14 days or so, anyway, that let them self-custody it. So I didn't know how that would play into it.
Yeah, again, maybe a bit ahead of me there. I'd have to double check. I'm not sure on that. Try to keep.
They may not know either. Who knows? But yeah, it certainly hasn't played out in the market.
Just looking at SPX here, the S&P 500, we've had, clearly this is the 4-hour chart, relatively short-term chart. We had just a little bit of a pullback, and that's what we've said. The stock markets are still at or thereabouts all-time highs. So there's still, at some point, we're going to get a massive pullback. This can be counted in different ways, but at the moment, it kind of looks like a 3 down, 3 up, and I think we're probably going to get 5 down, so an expanded flat correction. So that would tell us a big correction coming. So I still think, in the back of my mind, I actually do believe that Israel, there'll be a very heavy response from Israel, and I think that's going to hit the markets hard. But the good thing is that Bitcoin, I was looking at Bitcoin, that's important. That Bitcoin, I mentioned about there being a similarity in the chart that I showed in 2022 and the current chart. So let me just go back and look at the daily chart on Bitcoin. It's actually a very, very similar chart. So we had, again, ABWX, potentially ABY to the downside. So this is very, very similar. And we could have had the W here, but the ABWX, AB, and potentially Y to finish. So very, very similar chart. This, honestly, if you compare it with the 2022 longer term chart, it's a much longer term, bigger time frame, but this is just a fractal, shorter time frame version of the price since the all-time high. It's so similar. And don't forget, after this next pull down, and the last time it happened in 2022, after the FTX crisis, we rose to new all-time highs for Bitcoin. I do believe, based on this current chart pattern, that we will once again rise to new all-time highs for Bitcoin, but there may be some pain in the short term. So I'm glad I remembered to go back on that one. And this next turn down will probably most likely correspond with a potential pullback in SPX. So when all things are looking bright and rosy, like China's been pumping money into their economy and the stock market's been pumping like crazy, these are the times you start to, when you're at all-time high, that's the time when you need to be, you can't bet against all-time highs, but you need to be aware at any time that there can be a serious pullback because you are actually at an all-time high. And that you could get new all-time highs, but at some point soon we will get a serious pullback. It's got to come. So I'm just, again, to reiterate, just being so cautious at the moment in the market. Taking very short-term positions right now. That's pretty much it for today. I could comment on other things, like I was asked to look at the dollar yen, for example. There's been no major response from dollar yen. We got a bit of a push higher. Now, remember, dollar yen is kind of correlated with the market. So when we get a big fall in dollar yen, in other words, when we get big yen strength, like the unwind of the carry trade we saw a month back or something, that corresponded with big weakness in the markets. Now we've seen a bit of a push higher just now. That's corresponding. Well, actually, it's just dollar strength. So there's nothing here really related to the carry trade. The carry trade is actually rebuilding, growing as this price moves higher. So there's a possibility this may be just an ABC and we may get lower dollar yen. Lower dollar yen will correspond with a shock in the market. So right now, whilst we may go a little bit higher, at the moment, it looks like it's setting up for another fall in dollar yen, which would correspond with weakness across risk assets. So let's just wait and see what happens there. And again, we can look at all sorts of others, but I think we'll leave it there for now. Hope it's been helpful. And have a great weekend, everyone. Look forward to Monday. Let's hope the markets are still stable by Monday.
You too, sir. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, everybody. Bye for now.
Thank you, Matt. All right. Yes, sir. Mr. Stoic, much appreciated. Thanks for the information. You got it, brother. So there's just a lot going on. I can tell you here in the capital, there's just a lot going on. You have more military planes going around. You have the Pentagon is always packed. There's just a lot. There's a lot going on, and hopefully we don't have more and more tensions over there in the Middle East. But they have all of these fun. I shouldn't say fun because they're horrible weapons of war, but they can be kind of cool technology, and they're gonna use them. That's what I think. I think they're gonna use them. So, hey Gia, what's up, man? Is this my man Gia from Russia? Hello, bro. I think so, right? I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I hope you're doing well too. Nice to see you, man. Nice to see you. We do the show every morning. I don't know if this is the first time you caught it. You're on Facebook. Okay, good to see you. Good to see you. I did want to play, let's see here. There's a couple of things on the Rothschilds. Of course, I started off the show with the Rothschilds tax song that we talked about here. If I share my screen, I have somebody else put this together. Sometimes I like to share what other people put together as well. Let's see here, Brett Pike. Is this it? Yes. Let's take a view of this here real quick. Let me.
France. And
talking about the Rothschilds.
The most powerful banker in the world just died. And when you study his family, it becomes clear why people can't afford homes and college. The story goes back to the 1700s and a banker named Mayer Rothschild. And he made an amazing discovery that there was more wealth lending money to governments than individual people. And to stay with me, because this will explain why Gen Z can't afford anything. Rothschild would have 5 sons who he would send to 5 different countries across Europe to start central banks: Germany, Austria, England, Italy, and France. And by the early 1800s, the Rothschild family was funding both sides of the Napoleonic Wars, which was the real World War I. And funding both sides of wars would become part of the business model. Well, Napoleon would be defeated at the Battle of Waterloo, and the Rothschilds had gotten the news before everyone else. They knew that England won the war. Well, they start selling off all their English war bonds, and they make sure everyone could see them do it. And when everyone saw the Rothschilds selling their bonds, they started to sell theirs. They assumed that the Rothschilds had information that England was going to lose the war. And when everyone started selling their war bonds, the Rothschilds bought them back for pennies on the dollar. And later that week, when everyone else found that England won the war, the Rothschilds basically owned the country. And as Nathan Rothschild said, "Give me control of a nation's money supply, and I care not who makes its laws." The business model had become to get governments and people into debt. And when the Rothschilds saw a young America, they saw opportunity. And in 1816, they found their way into American central banking with the second bank of the United States. And your money would be worth even less today if Andrew Jackson hadn't come along and saved the country. He started what are known as the bank wars. He balanced the budget, paid off America's debt, and ended the charter of the second bank of the United States. And although an assassin was sent after Jackson, he would miss both shots, and Jackson would proceed to beat him with a cane. That's why Jackson is on the $20 bill. They're mocking him, and they're mocking you and me. But 77 years later, the Rothschilds would take control of the American banking system with the passage of the Federal Reserve Act. That's what this book is about. It gave a small group of powerful bankers a monopoly over the printing of the American dollar. And for every dollar they print, they're paid back at interest. This is why the 16th Amendment was passed that same year, 1913. It established the federal income tax for the first time in American history. When they print this money, they get paid back at interest with our tax dollars. And there hadn't been a federal income tax for the first 137 years that America was a country. And these taxes go to paying back the bankers at interest, not the roads and the military like everyone thinks. It's usury, debt, interest. It's how you steal the wealth from the middle class of a nation. And they love the wars because they're getting paid back at interest, but every time they print that money, they're stealing from the future. It means your money is going to be worth less. It's why they had Lyndon B. Johnson push the Great Society, which made mortgages and college loans available to everyone, which was great for the boomers. But every time they took out those loans, it meant the price of housing and college would go up, up, up. So now no one could afford housing, no one could afford college without going into debt. The business model has always been to use usury to steal the wealth of nations, to control governments, and to control people. Check out my private homeschool community, the courses I teach, and my books on the banking system, how information is controlled, rights fundamental to being an American, the trap of free, the history of fake news, and so much more. ClassicalLearner.com.
Yeah, check this guy out.
The most
Brett
powerful banker in the
White,
world just died, and when you study his
founder of
family,
the Classical Learner. It's pretty good report. A lot of the stuff I hear, when I hear it, they get some stuff right, but then they don't get the other stuff right. But that was pretty on point. There was nothing that jumped up here. Classical Learner homeschool company and creator of the homeschool connected curriculum. I was also homeschooled, so it's fairly interesting. The thing about being homeschooled is that you get to, skip a lot of the programming that happens. Oh, yeah, thanks, man. Please accept my condolences on the loss of life in North Carolina. Are your friends and family okay? Thank you. So I went to school in North Carolina. I'm sure some people are affected, but family is okay. So, Bruce, best of the best. Thanks, brother. Thank you, sir. So, but yeah, being homeschooled, it definitely gives you. I mean, my dad basically told me it was all baloney. I actually have another story, a quick story to tell. I'll end up running out of time this morning, but my 9-year-old came home with a book, non-binary. Can you believe it? 9 years old, non-binary book. Now she goes to Catholic school, so that and I will elaborate for you, my friend. We have a question that came in off of X. Does Wall Street allow for Kamala presidency? I said Wall Street wants Kamala. Can you elaborate? I cannot make it make sense as to why they would want her. I mean, they could. The short answer is because she is controllable, and she's eminently controllable. And so, if you're in, first of all, Wall Street war, everything else is good for, it makes the stocks go up. You have to also realize who is behind the stock market. Who are the money people? Who are the bankers? I like to tap dance around it a little bit on this show because I like to be on YouTube and stuff like that. But you fill in the blanks. Who are the bankers? Who are they? All the families of the Rothschild, all the families of the central bank, they're all in a group. What group is that? Let me just put them up here. This is the Rothschild tax, inflation. These are the families who own the Federal Reserve right here. They all have something in common. What is it? So you have a guy like Trump, and Trump is Trump. He seems to be in bed pretty much with those people. I agree. He's probably doing whatever he needs to do to get elected. I saw Melania came out with her video yesterday. It was just absolutely upsetting. She's now pro-abortion. I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing? I wasn't going to talk about it, but seriously, I'm about to go into the binary book thing. So, what are we doing? So the Republican Party is now the party of drag queens, transvestites, and baby killers? We have lost our way. Now, I'm sure that Melania has decided, and, I'm sure my wife wanted to go out and do something like that. I would say absolutely not. So I'm sure Trump is in the same position. So that was a calculated move. They decided that with their advisors that was a good move. But I think at a certain point, guys, that we have to stop. What is the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans? Like, what's the difference? And why, the two-party system is utterly failed. So the Republican Party is now the party of drag queens, transvestites, and baby killers. And I'm supposed to go vote for that? I think we're in trouble anyway, to be honest with you, with the magic electronic voting machines and everything else. But throw up. Here's the thing. I don't care. You want to be a transvestite or gay or whatever else. I am easy, guys. I do not care. Go have your fun. Okay? But to glorify it is a major mistake. We have a population collapse in this country. In the world, in the Western world, we have a population collapse. You have actually, what's his face? Elon. He posts up a video real quick of Schumer, Chucky Schumer. And Chuck's talking about, well, we're having a population collapse, and this is why we need. Elon's just been going off here under the Biden. We've let in so many quote unquote newcomers, so many that I don't see. Even if Trump wins the election, which is crazy. Oh wow, exactly. Governor is saying he's causing inflation. Oh yeah, I'll just go ahead and share this. It's funny because I have been sharing this video for a long time. Played on the show a number of times. Exactly. Government overspending is the cause of inflation because their checks never bounce. They increase the money supply. Yeah. And he always leaves out that the Federal Reserve is the one who enables it. But whatever. The one I wanted to put here, it won't be long because I just saw it this morning. It's Elon with Chucky Schumer. Well, if it doesn't, here it is right here. This is Chuck. Elon posted this about an hour ago, 9 hours ago, rather.
Now more than ever, we're short of workers. We have a population that is not reproducing it on its own with the same level that it used to. The only way we're going to have a great future in America is if we welcome and embrace immigrants, the dreamers, and all of them, because our ultimate goal is to help the dreamers, but get a path to citizenship for all 11 million or however many undocumented there are here. Now more than ever, we're short of work.
We're short of workers, he says. Never mind anything going to AI and everything else. We're short of workers, population decline, everything else. And then we have now both parties are going to be pro-abortion. It's honestly, I'll tell you this, guys. Big mistake. Big mistake. Having Melania come out and be pro-abortion. Big mistake. Fine, be pro-abortion in private, but your husband is running for president of the United States. Good Christian people across the country don't believe in killing babies, and he wants our vote. And I haven't said it before, but yeah, the Republican Party is now drag queens, transvestites, and baby killers. And I tell you what, guys, you are out of touch with your voters. You are out of touch because your voters are not drag queens, transvestites, and baby killers. Okay. I don't know who is advising who, but you guys are out of touch. And yeah, to your point, Melania's book is a bestseller in the USA. I mean, the bestseller thing is always kind of a funny thing. I will say it wasn't worth her doing that. But the way you become a bestseller book here, I mean, yeah, of course people buy it, but you have enough money that you buy the books and you make it a bestseller, and that's the deal. You have it; it's always sandbagged before it comes out. So Melania's book is a bestseller. Okay, well they bought their own books. That's the way it works. So anyway, back to the whole thing. So my 9-year-old daughter comes home with the book, and it is, oh yeah, I'm going to read this book, and she kind of like. She's already asking me about this, that, and the other. And interestingly enough, the rainbow flag. What's the rainbow flag? Blah, blah, blah. I told her, I said, look, you got to understand that, my dad told me he'll never talk to me again if I pulled that crap. And guys, that's like what we want to be telling our youth. We don't want to be telling our youth, oh, non-binary. Oh, well, you can decide. She says, and then so anyway, she comes home with the book, blah, 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 Dad. And she didn't get the book at school. She got the book from one of her friends at school that she was hanging out with. And I guess I can't even believe that the parents let that happen. So she gets this, and it's, oh, no, Dad, it's science. No, honey. It's actually not science, okay? Science is X, Y, and X. And if you have it's very simple. You have a hot dog, you're a man. If you don't, you're a woman. That's the way it works, okay? If you have the other thing, that you're a woman. It's not controversial. So you have cats. What do you have? You have man cat, you have the boy cat, and the girl cat. And they have more cats, right? Yeah, you have the dogs. Male dog, female dog. They have more dogs all over nature. This is the way it works. And that the devil is always out to get you, I told her. The devil is always out to get you. And she goes, oh, well, it's just a book. This is not. My 9-year-old is pretty smart. And I said, yeah, but honey, think about the man who wrote that book. Let's look at that man's name. I flipped it over, looked at this guy's name. It's the usual suspects, of course. Think about that man. What was that man thinking to write this book for 9-year-olds, for kids to read? What's he doing? Like, why is he doing that? The devil always wants our kids. They don't want population growth. Did not plan to go off on this one. Anyway. I think the Republican Party's made a major, major mistake. And I don't know if they're going to recover from it. I'll tell you this one way or the other, and I've said it a number of times, that be ready for either way, whether Trump wins or whether he doesn't win, and go and do your voting. But yeah, the Republican Party has lost its way, folks. So anyway, hopefully Trump is definitely the better option. There's no doubt about it. Make sure you go in there, register to vote, make your voice heard. I guess I'm going to be out of here. Well, I went off on my tangent. Cheers, guys.
Your voice is powerful. When combined with social engagement, it's a force for change. Decentralized media paired with free speech is the catalyst for an empowered world and a unified, invaluable ecosystem. Join Global Boost, become a champion of free speech, and help to reshape the future of media.